In the Money is made possible by financial support from Old National Bank and Chicagoans like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to In the Money. I am your host, Kimberly Loftus, a CPA and financial executive who today is financially secure, but not always. Coming out of college, I was blessed with almost no student loan debt due to scholarships, but I had a ton of credit card debt, with bill collectors calling all the time. With my limited starting salary, living expenses, and credit card debt, I was stressed and had no one to turn to for help, so I thought. I began researching and reading about personal debt and realized I could control my own money destiny. I developed a strict budget that I immediately turned around and broke for that cute going out to the club outfit. But once I began following the 50-30-20 budget, over time I was able to get out of debt, rebuild my credit history, and own my own home and business. The 50-30-20 budget allowed me to spend and save money wisely based on my goals, as well as have some wiggle room to actually enjoy life. Some of my goals were for the long haul, while others were right around the corner. Imagine you're driving a car from Chicago to California for your dream vacation, but you do not have a map or GPS. You end up taking wrong turns, getting turned around, and frustrated to the point you give up and return home. Not having a budget gives you the same result: frustration and hopelessness, blocking you from achieving your goals. Today in our living room, I have Keith Jones, an economics graduate of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where he played football under Lovie Smith and interned under Congressman Bobby Rush, as well as with the Wealth Management Division of Merrill Lynch. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
How does the 50-30-20 budget work?
Well, 50-30-20 budget, at first I didn't know about it, but breaking down simply, 50% goes to your needs, 30% goes to your wants, 20% goes to debt reduction / savings. So just break it down in simple terms, that's what 50-30-20 rule is.
So for the 20%, when you say savings and debt repayment, can you explore that a little bit more?
Yeah, so debt reduction basically means that you have credit card bills, you make your minimum payment, but you want to put a little bit extra onto that, and that would be debt reduction there. Versus your savings, when you take a little bit of your paycheck and you put it into a separate account that you do not touch at all. And so.
Okay, so when I think about debt repayment, so if I use a 50-30-20 rule and I don't really have, at this point in time, maybe my salary or my needs are too high, does that mean I really can't do debt repayment? Because I see a lot of times people ask the question, should I pay down something or should I save? But sometimes it's just not an option if you use the 50-30-20 rule. Is that the case?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think each individual is unique. And so whatever your circumstances are, you can make that 50-30-20 rule work for you. It doesn't have to necessarily be exactly 50-30-20, but you always want to make sure that you're putting something in your savings account. No matter how minuscule it is, you want to put something away for a rainy day.
So how did you get so good at knowing about budgeting and managing your money, especially at such a young age?
Well, at first I struggled like all young people. I struggled at first, but once I joined Merrill Lynch in the Wealth Management Division, I learned how important it was to save. And so myself, I created a Microsoft Excel document that allowed me to kind of break down my paycheck and see what exactly my wants, my needs, and my savings, and what debt I owed. And from there allowed me to say, okay, I can take 50% of my check and pay off my needs. And the next 30%, I can say, okay, I want these things, but I don't necessarily need it. I can have a little bit of fun with that, but then for sure the 20% went to savings and debt reduction, just making sure that I always pay down the debt and leaving a little on the side for anything I want in the future.
So for those people who are not good with spreadsheets, how could they use a 50-30-20 rule? Like, back in the day, people use envelopes. What would you suggest if I'm not good with, using Excel or spreadsheets? What could I do?
Well, perfect. Like you said, envelopes. Just making sure that you label each envelope and say, okay, I'm making this X amount per check. Let's just take some of this check and put it towards the needs. Let's take some of this and put it towards my wants, but always making sure that this separate envelope, you can even get a different color envelope to say, hey, this is my savings / debt reduction. I do not want to touch this. This is for future use only, or just even pay down my debt.
And how could I automate it, this 50-30-20? If I didn't use envelopes, how could I automate it where I actually, every time I get a paycheck, my money goes into whatever that bucket is? What would I do?
Right. So you can also set up different accounts as well. So you
Mm-hmm.
have your main checking account, you have your savings account. You can also have many savings accounts. I suggest two, to where your main checking account goes your main check, and that's just for your needs and wants. And then that second or third savings account goes for your savings slash debt reduction. And you can automate that to where X amount dollars from your check automatically goes into this account. You never see it. So therefore, if you don't see it, you don't know it's there. So it's
That's a
an
good
easy
point.
trick to even think.
So, Keith, you mentioned as part of your internship with Merrill Lynch in wealth management, you learned about money. But what about your family? How did they contribute to your knowledge around money and budgeting?
Started from when I was a young age. I was very observant, and I always ask my parents questions like, "Hey, what's a mortgage? How do you guys kind of save to the side?" Or just kind of seeing how they handled money and what we were able to do as kids. I was very observant of that, and so as I got older, it allowed me to, hey, let me stash a little money here, not tell anybody. So therefore, if I wanted a toy or some food or something like that, I had something to the side. And so it started from that age, and then as I grew older and went into the internship with Merrill Lynch, it just kind of clicked for me. The rich people, they say, hey, I have these investment accounts for my kids that they can't touch. This is a savings account. So in the back of my mind, I'm saying, hey, this is how savings go. You start from when you're young and it accumulates as you get older. And so you start to learn more about finances and being financially responsible. You can say, hey, I'm going to take this money out, 50% for needs, 30% for my wants, and 20% for my savings. And as you get a job, it kind of makes it that much easier as well because you have that paycheck to go into that savings account that you don't even see.
Now, the 50% wants, 30%, no, I'll take that back. 50% needs, right? Correct?
Right.
30% wants, and then 20% debt repayment slash savings. Does your family ever talk about that?
No, so I only found out recently what 50-30-20 rule was, and I shared it with my family. But it just goes to show that we can always learn as we get older.
That's good. Now, can you give me some examples of what would be in each bucket?
Yeah, so 50% needs would be your car payment, your mortgage. That has to get paid every month, so that bucket's already stabilized there.
Okay.
30% wants would say, hey, I want to go to the mall this weekend, let's go buy some new clothes. So you set that aside for your 30%. That's just a want. You don't necessarily need it, but you kind of want it. The 20% savings slash debt reduction would be, hey, I want to buy a house in the future, in a year or two. I want to put some money to the side to save for that future house. Or debt reduction is like you have a credit card. You make your minimum payment out of that needs bucket, but you want to kind of reduce that debt even more, so you're adding extra onto that minimum payment. So that would be a debt reduction there.
And does this budget type allow you to have some wiggle room? For example, if I have a belief system where I have to tithe, that would be a need to me. So does that system allow me to define what a need is within, certain parameters?
It doesn't. So like I said, each individual is unique. Whatever you believe that your need is, you put that in your first bucket. And the same thing goes for your wants as well. Whatever you believe that you want to save for, or what your want is, what your need is, you categorize that per bucket.
But it can't be like I need those shoes. It has to be something reasonable that's part of your core that you would put it in the need bucket.
Correct.
Okay, great. And so going back to your family, how did you communicate this 50-30-20 budget system to them? I mean, how did it come up?
Family dinner one night. We're just all sitting around talking about finances and saying, hey, I'm doing this now, and I have a job, or I have siblings in college. They're asking, Keith, how are you doing this? How are you able to save this amount of money? And discover the 50-30-20 rule. We say, hey, break down your finances and say, hey, what are your wants, needs, and what do you want to save? What are your future goals? And from there, you break it down, and it kind of separates itself, and you say, hey, I'm going to put this in the wants, this in the needs, and this in the savings. And after that, it became an eye-opener. All my siblings kind of use it now, try to follow it. But, they're in college, and I have a job now, so it makes it a little bit easier for me. But, as they get older and as they matriculate into the workforce, they'll be able to do that much easier.
So if I'm math challenged, would it be best for me to automate it using my bank account and to say automatically separate through the payrolls to automatically send it to each account so then I don't have to worry about it?
Correct.
Okay.
And then each account you can say, hey, I want X amount of dollars to go to this account. You don't even have to do percentages or anything. You just say, I want $50 to go to my savings each month or each paycheck. Automated process. You don't even have to think twice about it.
Okay, great. Have you told your friends about the 50-30-20 budget?
I have not yet. Next time I speak with my friends, I am going to mention it.
Do you guys have conversation around money or just other things?
Oh, we do. We do. A lot of my friends are in the workforce now, and so we kind of bounce ideas off of each other, different investments or different savings plans we can do, and we also have future goals that we want to reach. So we do talk about finances.
That's good to know that you guys are talking about it at such a young age because a lot of times that's not happening. Does your family play a role in you being open with your communicating about money with others?
Yes, my family's a very open family. We discuss anything, and finances play a big part in it as well. I believe my parents wanted to instill in us at an early age that finances are very important, and the sooner you understand your finances, the better you are as you get older. You're able to do more things and not kind of restricted based off of overspending or not really understanding what you're bringing in.
Do you have any tips for those listening about using the 50-30-20 budget?
Oh yeah, just when you're categorizing your budget, just make sure that you're being realistic on what your wants versus what your needs are.
Okay.
Buying a new pair of shoes isn't a need. The shoes can wait.
Right.
If anything that you're going to say a month later not using, or like, why did I buy that? Don't put it in the need category. That's a want category. And then you can go from there and say, hey, well, I guess I didn't need these at the moment. It's just a want. I can put this money into my savings account. If you think about it that way and being realistic with yourself, I think you'd be good to go for the future.
How good are you at sticking to a budget? Because I know when I was your age, it was hard because those wants kind of took over. So how do you prevent yourself from doing that?
It took me time to really become disciplined in it, honestly. You have friends going out and taking trips. Of course, you want to join your friends, but being disciplined and saying, hey, I don't need to go on this trip. Let me save my money. And then the next trip I can go on. Just being honest with yourself and just saying, hey, take your time, slow down. You're not in a rush. Life is long. So that's all you have to do.
Well, thank you, Keith, for that insight on the 50-30-20 rule. I think we learned a lot today about how to use that.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Kim.
Now joining us in the living room is Keith's biggest fan, his mom, Lisa Jones, as well as Tamika Hill, a licensed clinical social worker. Lisa, how proud you must be of your son.
I am.
Please share your own money story and how that impacted your family.
Yeah, so I was like a lot of people. When I got out of college, or even in college, incurred a lot of debt. Credit card debt, because I didn't know the 50-30 rule that he just told us, the family 50-30-20. And I actually started out with a lot of debt in college, carried that debt on to marriage, and Keith was too young to really understand or know how we kind of sacrificed and pulled ourselves back together, and had to figure out the rules ourselves to get ourselves out of debt and get into a better place so that we could at least show them a better way.
Now, how did that impact you with your raising your kids, knowing that you have so much debt and knowing the struggle that caused, assuming that you don't want that same struggle for your kids?
Yeah, and it's good to have the show because I think about that all the time, how they never knew that we had so much going on at the time. And I think in my mind, I justified it saying, well, they're in the best schools and they have the best of everything. And so as a parent, you kind of think if they have the best of both worlds, it's okay. Right. The debt is okay because I know that my children are doing better. But as they grew older and they started telling me their dreams and their wants, it was more based on how we raised them to think that they could have anything with no repercussion. So we had to think about that as they got older and as they started wanting more and more, and we started getting older and learning and saying, we don't want to live like that, paycheck to paycheck. We want to have some savings. We want to show them that saving for that particular article and not just getting it right away is what you should be doing.
So going back to where you're saying you taught your kids that they can have everything. I mean, you had talked about this previously, but you didn't give them the lesson of the money part. It's like they believe they can do everything, but at the same time, it's like, hey, we got to finance that. Did you find yourself as a family unit struggling a little bit because you said they can have everything and you're going to make that happen no matter what? Was that a part of what your story is for your family?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay.
We told them, think of what you want to be. Biggest dream, whatever you want to have. You want to have a home? Yes, you can have that home, $1 million.
Right.
But we said, go to school. When you go to school, you get your degree, you can have this home. We never talked about, but you have to save your money, some things you may not get along the way, and everything is not a need. So I also think that I have a younger son who's in this generation where everything is a need. I need these shoes. I know you talked about that before. And I think where we kind of our decision was not good. We would, when he was younger, say, oh, you need that? Okay, we'll get that. Okay, we'll get that. But as we have gotten older and they've gotten older, we've taught them that that's not the way life works. Okay. And so with Keith coming along, and he's economic major, he really opened our eyes and said, parents, what are you doing? you can't do this. Right. You need to stop. And we looked at the amount of money that we actually made, and we looked and said, this is crazy that we make this amount of money, but we still don't have the savings that we want. Okay. So after he took us to the side and kind of spanked us a little bit, we started using that rule too.
And was it hard listening to your younger son?
Somewhat, but you know, at a point in your life, you want to change, right? You want things different. And you, for us, we wanted a savings. We wanted to be able to go visit them wherever they were without incurring a lot of credit card debt and things like that. So just, it was good. It was good. Like he said, for the entire family, I have other children that are in various forms of their lives, in medical school and things like that. They actually are looking at it as well.
Okay, good. So now, Tamika, have you heard this story before where we have kids and we want them to do better than we had or have more than we have, but then that ends up not being able to follow that 50-30-20 rule because because they're outer wants, because of our own personal experience? Is that common for you? Have you seen that?
I'm a prodigy of it. Yes, my mom was, like you said, I wanted my kid to have, so my mom definitely did that for me and my brother. She wanted us to have. And I get the psychological of that parents always want to give you what they lack. And so that's how we teach children how to handle finances, by giving them out of lack, and they never see the lack, so they don't care about lack. They just know, I need, you produce.
Right.
And so you see a lot of the tradition, and it becomes generational, unfortunately, until you get someone like this young man who steps in and say, hey, no, you're doing it wrong. I had to learn through bankruptcy twice. So absolutely true.
So how would I know if I'm a parent that I'm suffering from this, giving my kids what I lack? Will the 50-30-20 rule kind of help me see that because I'm out of balance?
Oh, yes, certainly. Think about it. If you're giving, I think you said like your son wanted shoes, right?
Yes.
And like we said, that's a need. You have to start making kids show them, why is this a need? Why are you giving them this? Why are you doing it? Like, and then it teaches work ethic too, as a matter of fact. When you let them earn versus give, when you're just giving, you already know you're doing the wrong thing. Because they just said, I need.
Right.
They don't even say I want no more, it's I need.
So what about, hey, they had great grades and I want to reward them from that? Like, how do I separate that from just giving?
Okay, so I'm a little different about those grades. You earn grades because you want a job after me once you get grown. So you earn grades because that's your job. That's your own reward for life. You need an education to survive in life. So I don't personally subscribe to the reward stuff as far as school, because we are teaching them, oh, you're doing a good job, so somebody's always going to reward you for doing a good job. That's not true. You have to learn self-validation.
Okay, I like that. So, Keith, going back to what you shared with your family, how'd you approach them about this 50-30-20 rule and saying, hey, you guys need to shift it a little bit around?
I think it was a bit of an awkward conversation at first. You know, being young, approaching your parents is kind of like a teeter-tot you want to walk on. It's like, how do I approach them? But I think with the open line communication we have, it was like, hey, this is what I learned in school. This is how I think we can apply it to our situation here. And just being open and honest about it and not holding anything back, I think that was really helpful in getting everyone to understand in the family.
Because I know when I went to my parents, I was dismissed that I didn't know anything, even though I was an accounting major. They wouldn't let me touch their taxes. But once I became a CPA, they're like, oh, yeah, you can do your taxes. But it wasn't until that point. Even though before that, I still knew about money, but they weren't open. So it's really great that you guys were so open to still learning about money. That's really great. Now, Tamika, can you share some of those triggers around 50-30-20 budget? Like, what would make somebody bust a budget, and then how can they recoup if they actually busted their budget?
Wants always make us bust a budget, I guess you could say, and not knowing how to self-discipline and really learning to trigger. Most people are emotional spenders, I guess you could say. When we are sad, when we're happy, even when you think about it as culturally, what do we think happiness is? Oh, everybody drinks, they have food. So we do things to make us feel better. And you have to know that, okay, if I'm buying things and to make myself feel better, that's obviously a trigger. That's a no-no. Because obviously you probably have way too much stuff in your closet that you don't need. That shows that, okay, you're getting out of balance here. And I think really it starts off with what he kind of said, really sitting down and knowing the numbers.
Okay.
Most people don't know the numbers. So you can't know you're out of a budget if you don't know the number.
Would journaling help you with not only the writing down the numbers, but also knowing your triggers? Was that something that you would recommend?
I think they go hand in hand. Nowadays, a lot of people, unfortunately, don't know how to just journal freely. So I recommend probably more guided journals about what specifically things that you want to, journal, because most people don't know how to journal. And so they stop.
Perfect. Thank you guys for all this information. I think this family dynamic, knowing your triggers, and following the 50-30-20 rule, this is all very helpful. Thank you so much.
Now we're going to talk about budgeting. Budgeting 101. What I'm going to teach you today is I really want you to think about how to budget like a boss. When we budget effectively, we are getting control over our finances. It's going to keep you focused on your financial goals, and you're going to know where every penny of your money is going. It's going to help you save for unexpected and expected expenses in life. And it's really going to show you how to save money. I can just tell you that everyone should be working on a budget. A budget is something that really gets you in control of your money, and the more and quickly you use this, it's really going to help you obtain those things in life that you want. So let me first define what is a budget. Essentially, a budget is a spending plan. It's going to have your money coming in and money going out, and the whole point is to have more money coming in than going out. So conceptually, the process sounds simple. But when I survey people across all the areas that I work, I say if it is so simple by definition, why are so many people not using a budget? Now, some people might say, I don't have the time, or I just don't know how. But the biggest reason that I get why people tell me that they don't budget is simply because if they put items on paper of their expenses and their income, most likely it's going to show them that they may have to change the way that they live. And people don't like change. How do we develop a budget? Well, first and foremost, I think the key piece of this is to think about, where does your money go? Now, if I surveyed most of you today, or most of the people that I work with, I will ask them, how many of you have ever ran out of money at one time in your life before you got paid again? Now, about 99% of the people that I've talked to say it's happened to them. So the key piece of this is, for 1 week, I challenge you, 1 week, write down everything you spend, excluding your bills. This is your other spending that you do on a daily basis. And let's see where that money goes. What I really want to stress is to treat your family budget like a business. So picture this. If you're a business, you have one main goal, and that's to make a profit. If you're not making a profit, you have two options, right? You can grow revenue, or you can cut your expenses. Which one's easier? Unfortunately, the expense reduction is easier. But in the family side, it's the same thing, right? If you're not making ends meet and you're taking your income minus your expenses, we hope to see a surplus or money left over. If we don't, we have two options. We can grow revenue, which means find a second job, a third job, or maybe even a job that pays more money. Or we can cut our expenses. And I know we don't like to cut expenses, but we sometimes have to take a harsh look at exactly where our money is going. And then I also challenge you to save for both short-term and long-term savings. This short-term could be things maybe for a vacation next year, or holiday expenses that are coming up, or maybe long-term savings, that retirement fund, long-term investments, or paying down things quicker.
Imagine you decide to try again to take that dream vacation to California, because now you are armed with your map. This map provides direction on how to get to your end destination, but it also provides some places to have some fun excursions along the way. A few days into your journey, you run into a road hazard stopping you in your tracks. Don't panic. Recognize your own negative money triggers that impact you sticking to the 50-30-20 budget. Adjust and fix that flat tire and keep it moving. My money challenge to you is to create your own 50-30-20 budget for at least 90 days based on your long-term and short-term life goals. Don't forget to automate and let 50-30-20 provide you the freedom to enjoy your money journey.